All right, welcome back. I am back in Colorado for the first time in a long time, and I'm pretty excited because I have a couple new discs to review here at Interlochen Park, and I also get to show off a little bit of my new team, my new sponsor. I'm on Team Fly Green here, Fly Green Disc Golf. They're one of the biggest and best stores here in Denver area, in Colorado in general, and they also have a huge apparel line for disc golf. It's some of the best apparel you can get for disc golf. They have an assortment of like really clean like polo shirts, really awesome designs. They've got sweatshirts. They even got tech pants and tech shorts. Really quality apparel, and I'm really excited to be on Team Fly Green this year. So a big shout out to those guys, and check them out, flygreen.com, if you want some incredible apparel. I think they're going to start distributing nationwide soon. But I'm out here. I just got myself a hold of the MVP Stasis and the Discraft Sled. So this is exactly where I did my review of the range when it came out, and the Berg X versus the Berg and the Berg X. So we're going to do that again, except this time I don't have a Berg, a straight up Berg. So we've got the range and the Berg X. But we're going to compare those to the Sled and the Stasis, which is kind of like the range X. So let's take a quick look at the profiles here. The range X, or this range X, the Stasis feels really good, and it's really cool to see that they brought the puddle top here to the gyro rim here. Shape wise, it's very interesting. It's a little bit deeper than a range, but also, if you can see it, it's got this quite a bit higher parting line and a little bit more aggressive rim shape right there, which definitely should make it much more overstable than the range as compared to the Berg X, which is also a little bit thicker than a normal Berg, and it has a little bit of an aggressive rim here, but much different shape than the Stasis. You can see that the Berg X parting line is still actually pretty low, but it does have that aggressive on the bottom, whereas the Stasis is much higher and a little bit more aggressive to almost not like quite flat like a zone type, but definitely a lot less rounded. Whereas the Sled is very rounded, but it's also very shallow. And look at the Sled compared to the range. It is even more shallow than the range, and it looks to be a little bit more neutral. But from my limited testing, it definitely feels quite a bit faster. So I think the 3-speed setting is close. It might even be kind of almost like a 4-speed with no glide. And it's rated -1.2. So it should have more fade, more turn and more fade than the range. The Stasis doesn't have ratings yet, but I think it's going to be very, very similar to the Berg X, maybe 2.112, something along that lines. So anyway, we're here at Interlochen. There's a bunch of really short holes. It's perfect to kind of get started and show these discs, because most of the time you're probably going to use these on approaches, unless you play at courses like this with these kind of really short holes that are quite fun with these, or you're doing placement shots in the woods. They are fantastic discs. So we'll start with the known quantities here with the range and the Berg X. A little breezy here. We got kind of a nice tailwind right now, so we might not see the understability of these quite yet, but we're going to start with a forehand here. Actually, if we're going to forehand, I'm going to move you to a bit of a forehand line here and start off here with the range. I usually do a little bit of a hyzer flip smoothie with the range, get it to flip flat, but it should stay pretty straight. So I'm going to go kind of straight at it. You can see it flip up, stay straight, but it really doesn't fade a whole lot unless you give it a lot of air where it's really slowing down. Then you'll get a little bit of fade. And here's the Berg X, which normally I'm going to throw a little flatter and let it fade in at the end. Oh, never got off hyzer and just kind of slides in. So it didn't even get off hyzer. I expect these to be a similar comparison. This should have a little bit more flip on a forehand, but since it's faster, it might have a little bit more integrity for a bit more power. But we'll do it very similar to the range. Oh, it didn't flip a whole lot, but look, it's pretty fast. You can see it takes a while before it gets to the ground. It didn't really flip to flat, which is interesting. That could be the tailwind. And I'll throw the Stasis a little bit flat, similar to the Berg X, and we'll see what happens here. Oh, straight, a little bit of fade. All right, I got that really flat and really straight. It actually went pretty far. Didn't fade as hard as I kind of expected it to. I thought it was gonna be a little more overstable than that, but I also might have just hit it a little harder. But decent start. Let's go see how they perform. Well, other than the Berg X hitting this tree, which probably would have slid up to the pin and been really good, everything else went a little long on this shorty hole with forehands. The Stasis actually went really long. I did throw it pretty flat and a little bit harder than these two on the hyzer flip lines. It's pretty hard to tell right now ground play because the grass is so dead. Sometimes you're going to get a lot of slide just depending. And I think I hit that a little bit harder than everything else, but it does feel a touch faster than the Berg X. So if it ends up being a 2-speed similar to the range, I think that might be right on. I think it's a little more stable than that showed. I have to check the angles of how I released those, but not a bad start. Let's keep going. All right, hole 2, so 253 downhill. I think it might be just a touch shorter than that. I'm not sure, but we got the canal behind it, which is not full at the moment, thankfully. But I really like normally like throwing a Berg X or range on a much higher hyzer flip because they're gonna run out of the low glide. They're gonna run out of steam before they get to the canal, but they do tend to still hold downhill nicely without going way deep. Like sometimes I'll throw an envy on this and it just stays carrying down the hill because it's such a glidey putter. All right, I'm gonna switch it up a little bit this time. Well, actually, we'll throw the known quantities in first here. We'll go with the safe play with the Berg X. This is kind of a headwind, so this will be a good test to see how they hold up. All right, here's the Berg X. I'm gonna go just slightly to the right, fairly flat here. And it's just so dumpy, stable, just gets over the high sidewalk. Not bad. All right, I'm a little sore. I've been kind of dealing with a lot of tendonitis in my elbow. Some of these backhands might not be the cleanest. All right, range. If I threw the range flat in this wind, it'd probably dump over into the canal here. So I'm gonna give it another hyzer flip, see how it flips up and holds. Look at that hyzer flip. Nice, a little bit faster than the Berg X. That's kind of a known quantity. But the nice thing about the range, even though it is a little bit flippy and will drift on throwing flat, if you give it some hyzer, even a headwind, most of the time once it starts spinning and it gets to flat, it'll kind of hold it. It'll drift a little bit, but for the most part, if you give it a little hyzer, it's usually just really straight, which makes it really nice for hyzer flips approaches when you want to get dead on. We'll follow that up with the sled here. Another hyzer flip on the sled. Oh, whoa, whoa. Flipped up nicely. Whoa, it's fast. It's definitely a little faster, a little drifted. Thought I got that pretty good straight at it. Wind picked up a tiny bit, so it might have pushed it a little bit more than the range. But again, it's also a little faster. It's so thin that even with the puddle top, I don't know if it's losing that much glide. It feels like, I don't know, like the first time I threw it, I was like, man, it felt more like a 4-speed than like a 2 or 3. All right, now we'll go with the Stasis. I'm gonna throw this like the Berg X, throw it fairly flat. See how it handles the wind. Oh, got a little bit more hand wind. Oh, that's nice. Look at that. It got to flat, but it didn't really drift at all. It barely got to flat, and maybe just a tiny bit of hyzer, but pretty close flat. Stayed flat. Never really even thought about moving right. Even with the crosswind, it's like head left to right. That felt nice, and that is like parked. Definitely feels a little faster. That Berg X. That Berg X was my first backhand. It was a little bit didn't come out clean. I don't know how much. Yeah, Berg X was just a little short, but it slid up nicely. And like I said, it wasn't that good of a throw. Range, good distance-wise, distance control. Flipped up, did drift a little bit, but I don't hate that. But the Stasis this time, taking the CTP from the Berg X. And man, this neutron feels really good. Neutron always feels good, but this like puddle top neutron feels incredible. If you've ever felt like the turbulences, it's really nice. And I do really like the white rims. I think Project Lab Coat was much needed. You know, they might be using it to sell some more discs, but it's something that I think needed to happen. They look better. I'm not the biggest black rim fan, and I thought the MVP being all black was getting a little boring. The Axiom discs felt so much better, and they were so much easier to see and find. I think the white rims are a big success. All right, now we got 217, straightforward, but we got steep hill on the left side. We got the creek on the right, or the canal on the right. A lot of times we'll play this also a sidewalk. There's a river as well. Makes this a pretty challenging little short hole. We got tailwind here. This time we'll switch the order up. We'll go sled and stasis first. We'll go sled with the tailwind. I think we're just gonna go kind of straight at it, see if it can't, see how it holds the line. And I'm hoping it just won't fade too hard. I'm gonna aim about at the light post, and maybe we can get a nice slide in there for an easy bird with the sled here. Let's try to be super smooth with it. Oh, whoa, drift, come back, fade. Oh no. Wow. I think the wind is kind of left to right, actually. That got pushed quite a bit. I didn't think the line was that bad. I thought we were going to get the grass and slide forward, but it just kept drifting. So it doesn't have that much fade. I did not throw that very hard. All right, follow that up with the stasis here. Oh, that's really nice. Just subtle fade, nice push straight. That's really nice. And that's a hard shot on this hole to kind of stay there if it stayed on the hill. Follow that up with the Berg X. Very similar, fading a little earlier and dropping a little earlier. Kind of what we'd expect. Oh, Berg X has been my approach disc for the last probably like 2 years since it came out. And it's just done nothing but good things. But I've also been throwing the range a lot here. Throw the range pretty flat too, just to see how it holds up. Yeah, very similar to the sled. Just drifting. Oh man, and it spun OB. So yeah, you definitely want more stable options with this left to right. That one didn't drift as much. It got kind of an unlucky at the end, but very similar flight to that sled. That sled, I don't know. When my first round with it, I played actually at Johnny Roberts. I was throwing some extra test shots with it when I first got in town a few days ago, and it went pretty good, except for like a handful of times it just slipped out of my hand because it's so shallow. And I noticed I had to like over grip it a little bit. And I also noticed it was pretty fast. And like Johnny Roberts is in a lot of short holes. So I noticed I was just going a little long with it compared to like some of my other slow putters like these, slow unglidey. So it may be not glidey, but it's fairly fast, which is interesting. And both of those went quite long. I mean, it definitely jumped over the thing, but it went quite long. I tried to throw it pretty soft. Berg X is parked. Stasis slid down the little hill a bit, but it's in C1. And the range was also long, just long. I mean, it's only 220 shot, but that's what you kind of, I tried to throw it light. We'll see how it handles a forehand next. All right, hole 4 here, 274 from here. We're gonna play this hole twice because there's a little short extra tee pad that's like a nice little turnover forehand that we can play with too. But I'd like to see if we can't get some of these here under some power. We got some tailwind, so we'll start with the flippy boys and the tailwind. Start with the range here. Give it some power, see if we can't get it there. A little bit of hyzer flip. Oh, it's gonna get pushed OB. I think that would have faded a little bit, but I think the wind would probably have never let that get back in bounds. We need to be more online. Let's try the sled here. There we go. There's some stability with the sled. I give it a little hyzer, and that is parked. Okay. So like I said, the sled may be a bit faster here. All right, let's throw the Stasis, Range X, whatever you want to call it. Well, that's over the creek, but is it stable enough? It kind of was, but it's also just fell out of the air with the tailwind. Not even with airspace, these discs just won't really fade in a tailwind. Just can't put them over the creek. And we'll go Berg X. Oh yeah, it's gonna be short, but pretty solid. Very similar stabilities with that and the range. Berg X is definitely a bit slower. I think if I got the Stasis on the right line, I think it's probably really close. And the range too, I had to get that really close on the direct at it because it was drifting a bit, even on that high line. So, but that low hyzer flip with the sled was nice. It didn't really get the flat and start drifting. So, I don't know. It has some turn. It may just not really have the fade that it says. Like, I don't know if it's a 2-fade disc, but we'll check it out on some forehands and see how it responds. But this one is a win for the sled. Whew. All right, hole 5, 238, slightly downhill, behind the big pine back there. This one's a little hard to see, but we got straight headwind, and it's going to be pretty hard to hyzer these in, just because even the stable ones, with the wind, I just don't know if they're going to push. It actually might be right to left enough from here that it might work. So these stable boys might do pretty good here. A lot of times, though, with these slow discs, what I said before is, even though they're stable or overstable with fade, they just don't move left to right to left a whole lot unless you give them a lot of air time. And even then, most of the time, they tend to fall out of the sky before they move laterally very much. The wind might help us here. Go with the Berg X, see if we can't get it there. Gotta get it pretty flat but high. Oh, this is tasty. Some tasty wind there. Oh, it's getting lifted. We needed the lift. Oh, but it's so slow with a headwind. It held up okay. I got the lift with him, but it's so slow. It just got nowhere. This is the one disadvantage, though, of the white rims is they get dirty pretty quick. Oof. And well, this get kind of beat up fairly quickly sometimes. But you hit concrete, any disc is going to get chewed up a little bit. All right, let's go with the Stasis. If we can't get it there in a headwind. Boy. All right, now lift and fade. It's just not gonna. That looked like it was flying for so long and it went nowhere. It literally went nowhere. And it didn't. It stayed flat into the headwind. It was very interesting. It didn't end up fading and getting lifted to the left. It's kind of surprising. It might be pretty straight. I might have got that Berg X just slightly nose up enough to where it got pushed to the side. I think these are going to turn over. I'm almost sure of it. I'm going to give them pretty heavy hyzer. I'm tempted, though, to try to actually do a turnover forehand to get them there. It'd be kind of wild. I don't know. I think we kind of know what the flat they're going to do in headwind. Let's try the turnover forehand for funsies here and see if we can't get it to do something interesting. This is a really fun shot and kind of a high level forehand if you can learn to do it. All right, do the Stasis. Yes, look at that. Dude, that is absolute money. I don't know if you can see it on camera. That is like 15 feet. Flipped up flat, pushed, got through the wind. See if I can replicate it with the range. That was a sick shot here. Oh, too much. Wobbled it. No, I wobbled it. Oh, dang it. Little too much. Yeah, these two guys were nowhere close. But Mr. Stasis, or Mr. Sled, sorry, with another really solid shot. It seems to be able to handle the power on a longer throw and into the headwind a little bit better than these really slow guys. Okay, another 260, kind of straight out there, danger to the right. I'm gonna go power forehand with the two stable boys, and then with the two flippy guys, we're gonna try to see if we can aim them a little bit better, a little bit to the left, and see if they'll get and hold a line in the headwind. We'll see how these guys hold up on forehand. All right, let's go power forehand with the Berg X here. I don't think I can get it there, but we'll see what we can do, especially with this headwind. Yeah, just got beat down, but didn't really turn into the headwind with a pretty good forehand snap. Not bad. It's just very reliable. It's not going to get you very much distance. That's why we love the Berg X. All right, here is the Stasis. So you can't follow that up. Oh gosh, I wobbled it. And it kind of the same thing. It turned over a little bit. That, I think I torqued my wrist a little bit. Not clean. Not clean on the forehand. Sad. All right. Got the range. See if I can't get the range hyzer flip a little bit cleaner here. There we go. Yes. A little short, but you see, even with the headwind, drifted a little bit, but good amount of hyzer, gets to flat, tends to not burn over. It's such an interesting disc because it is a slightly flippy disc, but good spin, good hyzer angle, it's fairly torque resistant. Let's see how the Sled performs. Very similar. Man, it penetrates so much more. That is very solid, and it's got a little bit more stability at the end. Definitely faster. So I think we're starting to really see the differences now. Range is definitely a little slower than the Sled, and definitely a lot less fade. I think the Sled has a very similar amount of turn, but it being faster, you have to give it a little more power to see that turn. But it definitely has a little bit more fade, being a little bit faster. But even in headwinds, it seems to like handling it pretty well. So it's interesting that some of those early throws I struggled with a little bit in the tailwind. In terms of the Stasis and the Berg X, pretty similar flights. The Stasis is just a little bit faster and maybe not quite as dumpy. The Berg X seems to want to get hyzer pretty early most of the time and get down. It's definitely a lot slower and a little bit more dumpy. Offhand, I'd say if you wanted a pretty torque resistant, stable to overstable range, Stasis is like a perfect complement. I mean, if you want something that gives you a little more distance, the Sled, or if you really like a thinner hand feel, the Sled is kind of slaying on these slightly longer baskets in the headwind. All right, I'm gonna give these a good amount of power here. We got wind is calm a little bit. It's gonna be right to left. So it's gonna carry these once they start hyzering. But let's just kind of see what we can do with them and see how they fly on a full flight here. Slightly uphill, but we're just gonna give them the beans and see what they do. All right, we'll start with the range. Not bad. A little flat to maybe even a subtle anhyzer. Just kind of holds it. Just kind of does range things. Sled. See, that was my biggest problem with it, is it comes out of my hand early. It's so shallow. It just doesn't, it seems to always come out just a little early. And here is the Stasis. Very solid. That thing comes out of my hand really nicely. And the Berg X. Oh. Yep. Just does Berg X things. Again, very similar flights. The Stasis is just like a 2-speed Berg X. It's a range X. Yeah, Berg X just a little bit shorter than the Stasis in the range. Yeah, and just the one drawback to this Sled, a little faster, but it also just kind of comes out of my hand on backhands a little early. It's just so shallow. And even with that kind of thumb track, because it's also got the shallowest of the thumb track groove. The range and the Stasis are a little bit more, and then the Berg X is quite a bit more. But very solid. It's just kind of a different disc. There's definitely some decent amount of separation between all of these. And the nice thing on the forehand, a lot of times you can use the tooling to kind of help get a nice clean forehand. I realized I kind of missed the turnover forehand. I said I was going to shoot that turnover forehand on that hole. We're going to shoot the upshot here as we close you out here. All in all, I like the Sled. I don't think it's for me. Like I said, just a little too shallow. We're going to throw a little turnover forehand. Great in the woods, I'm guessing, for these. I use the range a lot for this type of shot. Kind of throw out these little forehands to get around stuff or down a tunnel. Kind of just pans out a little bit. That's really solid. Hopefully camera caught that. That was about 20 feet to the right. Landed flat on top of the hill. We'll try to do the same thing with the range. Oh, I turned it a little too much. Oh! But it was flattening out. Woo! It was either going in or sliding a bit long. Now the Berg X will we'll take the more traditional hyzer route. Actually, I usually like with that tree there, I'd either go over it. I'd almost consider going a little flex straight at it into the hill. Would really depend on the wind. I think I'm gonna go over it here. We'll just do the pure hyzer here, the Berg X. Yeah, solid. Love these for upshots to see how the Stasis does that. Pure hyzer to the left here. Yes, that's really nice. And absolutely parked. So nice. They're all great. Some of that is just me adjusting to the disc. Some of that's, I threw that in the Berg X as close to the same as I could. And like I said, it just goes a tiny bit farther. So I just kept it on the same power in the line and it was parked. Oh, that'd been cool if the range would have went in. Thought I overturned it, but it was actually shallowing out. And it's so unglidey that if it misses the basket, it just hits flat and probably slides maybe edge of circle, but not bad. And that was a little bit overthrown. So very, very solid. Such great discs. There's a reason why they're popular and useful. Oh my gosh, the Stasis. Absolutely pinned it. But the Sled was pretty solid. A little stable at the end. Missed the line just a touch. But there you have it. Shout out to MVP for sponsoring the Big Easy. Shout out to Fly Green for putting me on the team. Hope you enjoyed that review. We'll catch you in the next one. Peace.